Welcome back to The Resilient Entrepreneur. This is Kevin Johnson of Leverage Consulting, and that's right, I have yet another question for you. And today's question is it time for you to have a coach or a mentor, or even a different one? And interestingly enough, that may sound like a self-serving question, but what I really wanted to do was share with you something that was a bit of an epiphany for me a while back. And I've been working in a coaching consulting capacity for over 20 years. And a few years ago, I went to see a coach myself, knowing that I need to put myself in a position where I have people that I'm connected to that have ideas and strategies where either they've done something or they've helped other people do certain things. I've done it with a speaking coach. I've done it with a business coach. And in that meeting, it was one of the things that really bowled me over, and I never really thought of before, didn't know, was that even Tony Robbins has his own coach and mentors. And that to me was just shocking at the time. I mean, looking back, it makes total sense. But at the time, it was absolutely absurd to me that Tony Robbins has a coach and mentors. And I think he's had several of each over time. I think sometimes he actually has multiple. But what I think is interesting with this is Tony Robbins he's the man on high that so many look up to. And here he is with his own coach and mentor, or plural of each. And even with that, I am in the midst of reading another book about Michael Jordan, and even talking about how Michael Jordan was at the top of his game, and he brought in a coach to help him get even better. Because we know that technically speaking, the competition will never let go. You may have competitors that come and go, but you will, as a whole, competition is not going to wane just because you're doing well. They're always going to look for a way to beat you or how to do better. And it may not be about beating you. It may just be about everyone's out for themselves. It's not always about beating someone else. It's about, I want to be the best I can be. And sometimes that will overshadow or outshine other people. So, over time, I've really been attracted to the book, The E-Myth, which you may have heard me talk about in the past. And in that book, The E-Myth, a very core concept in the whole thing is the entrepreneur, the technician, and the manager. And every business has those three components. Now, to some degree, it might be one of those three things might be really small, and something else might be really big. We want those three things to be somewhat balanced. And there needs to be a push-pull. There needs to be friction amongst those three things. Because you may have, for example, we might go in total entrepreneur mode. And maybe we go so far off the reservation that we're thinking absurd stuff, and we need the technician and the manager to pull us back in. Or conversely, the entrepreneur might be the one to actually be the one to pull the technician and manager along. The technician may have phenomenal ideas on how we can propel this business. They just have the idea, but they don't know how to make it happen, or they don't have the time to make it happen. So that's where the entrepreneur comes into play. And, so if you're reflecting on the question of, is it time for me to have a coach and or mentor, you can start to dissect it off of the E-Myth and the entrepreneur, the technician, and the manager. And really from there, if you think about the entrepreneur as being the person who's the driving force, the person who's pulling everyone else along, the one that has the vision of where we're going to be, is completely unrelenting. And one way, shape, or form, we're going to make it happen. And if we look at the technician, it may be that we've got great ideas as an entrepreneur, but as a technician, we just can't deliver on what we're trying to do. And it may be the strategies or the ideas, the scripting, the teamwork to make that happen. Or maybe it's the manager side of things. We've got great ideas, we've got a great team, but we can't keep all this in order. We can't keep it between the guardrails to maintain the direction. We can't keep it between the guardrails to deliver the technician. We can't keep it between the guardrails to make all that happen. And that's where you can start to dissect, is it time for a coach or a mentor? And you can also use this as an opportunity to just start to decide, where do I need someone? So for example, oftentimes people will look only to their industry. They'll only look to someone who's done what they've done. But in reality, you may need to look for someone outside that realm. Interestingly enough, there's an FBI negotiator that goes around, and he's widely accepted, widely respected in the real estate field for his negotiation skills. To my knowledge, the man has never sold a house. But he's good at negotiating, and he's good in that respect. You have other people who might be great sales gurus, but they've never sold a house. They've never pulled a tooth or drilled a tooth. But you may not gravitate towards them because they've not done what you've done. But that's kind of the point sometimes of looking for someone outside that area, is to find someone who's a specialist in that area, someone who's a specialist in the area where your business is vulnerable, or it's weak, or it's just got a component that's missing. Is finding someone who's going to fill that gap in. The other way to look at this is, if you've been one of those three components, or you're just realizing at this stage of the game from a growth standpoint, you can't make it all happen. You cannot actually do all these things and continue to grow. If you look at really, really big companies, if you want a great example of this, you don't see Jeff Bezos driving packages to your house. There is an army of people that makes that happen. And over time, they have to leverage themselves and delegate things to ensure that they can continue to do so. And although your business may not be as big as Amazon, you have to look at it from a standpoint of, how do I move in that direction? So finding someone who's going to help you, and some of that is surrounding yourself with the right people in your business, but also finding someone who's going to help push you in that right direction, because there is a book on this, lots of great information in books. What got you here won't get you there. Okay, what got you to where you are today and what's making you stressed out, that might be the very thing that needs to change to get you to propel and move forward. So for those of you who've been on the front lines selling, you may need to find somebody else to support you. So if that's the one thing you are phenomenal at and no one else can touch you, then you find people to leverage you in other ways. But the strategy in which you do that, the accountability in which the accountability for you to be able to do that, might be where you need that coach and that mentor. When you start hitting the brick walls and how do I get through that brick wall, that's where the coach and mentor comes into play. And when you get into, I don't even know where to go. I don't even know how to take that next step. And it was awesome. I had this conversation just a few days ago where I was able to talk to someone who had just bought a business not long ago. And they were really worried about making changes. They saw such huge opportunity with their business, but they were afraid of making changes because of how it was going to be perceived by the team, how it was going to be perceived by the community. And it's not a new story. It's a very common story. And that, again, is where a coach or a mentor will come into play to help you break through those walls, make the changes that are necessary. And oftentimes, the people who are around you want the same things. You and they might be approaching things from different directions, and there's something that's necessary to bring everybody together so we can all row in the same direction. So hopefully that helps draw some picture for you so you can start to see the opportunity for you in having someone else that holds you accountable, somebody who has strategies and ideas, someone who's going to be able to help you move the needle for your business in the right direction, in a positive direction, so you can grow your business. Because in the end, it should all, and as I say all this, some of you may be envisioning that this is about more work, and I'm going to have less time with my family, less time for hobbies, less time for pretty much everything else. And in fact, it should be about more of that. It should be about balance. And that's the other thing that a coach and mentor can help you with is, and it's really tough for a lot of people who've hit that glass ceiling, is seeing how, when I'm at that glass ceiling, how I can do more and do so by doing less. So that, my friends, is your Resilient Entrepreneur podcast for today. If you have questions, comments, want to talk in the future, please contact me. I love talking to folks like yourself. And with that said, I will have yet another question for you in the upcoming podcast.